There's nothing that I wouldn't do.
For your attention, please. Can I have your attention, please? Everybody just look at me. Everybody just look at me. I day trade attention. Shout out to Gary V. Respond to every mention. You can find me on your NYPD before.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Let's Be Clear with Just Wayne. I am Just Wayne here on our Sunday night edition of Let's Be Clear, starting to do this twice a week. And I'm super grateful for you and for everyone who is watching. Every single time I log off of making these, so many things happen during the week. And what I'm realizing more and more is the story that I kind of want to highlight here, which is that everything is political. Like I think there's a lot of people who started following me for pop culture takes along the way. And I love talking about pop culture. I love talking about music. Obviously, if you're watching this, I have all of these musical elements behind me. And also, I absolutely love the recognition of how political art is, how political, in this case, what we're talking about today, sports is. Because everything is political, and the world that we live in feels like the weight of that politics is stronger and deeper than it used to be. I think part of it is that we are living, obviously, through the Trump administration, who has made their entire perspective, their entire viewpoint around flooding the zone. And so on today's show, I want to talk about a sports story that is becoming increasingly political. I want to talk about the reality or the news that just dropped about the fact that Spencer Pratt will not be advancing to the runoff in Los Angeles. And that is a very, very good day based on the sports story we're going to tell. And I have the opportunity to interview one of the state senators from my home state of Minnesota, Senator Erin Maye Quade, or EMQ, as she told me I can call her, and talking about the impact that local politics has, because I think that there's something to be said about the locale. But our main story today is about the NBA Finals. It is about the New York Knicks. I am a huge basketball fan. I love sports, sports ball, right? But I love sports. I've played sports my entire life. I had the chance to interview Governor Andy Beshear earlier this weekend, and I was like, yeah, I'm actually from Kentucky. You know, I lived in Wilmore and Lexington as a kid. And when you live in Lexington as a kid, it's UK all day. It's UK basketball. And I remember I lived there during the heyday of Rick Pitino with the teams with Antoine Walker and Ron Mercer. And like that was when I grew up. So for me, basketball has always ran very, very deep. And I love not only the sport itself, but I love the way that sports are covered, because the NBA in particular is such a narrative-based space. Like the narratives surrounding a player matter. For example, I've said ad nauseum, I think LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. I think Michael Jordan was the greatest player of all time when he was playing and held that title and crown for a long time. And then I think LeBron James took it based on how I saw Wemby playing at one point. I thought Victor Wembanyama could one day, if he stays healthy and consistent and keeps playing like he played in the Western Conference Finals, like, man, maybe one day he could, because that's an alien. Like Victor Wembanyama is an alien. Maybe one day he can get to the point of being the greatest player of all time. Obviously, he's early in his career. What I find fascinating is how those narratives play out. And I love when we get to the NBA playoffs, because the NBA does not, in my opinion, do a great job of narrating what is happening in its sport during the regular season. The regular season is just kind of happening. But then suddenly when we get to the playoffs, it's like all of the NBA journalists find the ability to create story as if they're Walt Disney. And in these playoffs, you have the New York Knicks, who made the decision last year to get rid of their coach after going to the Eastern Conference Finals and losing to the Indiana Pacers, who had a dream season with Tyrese Halliburton. And so you have that decision in the offseason that it's like, what is that going to mean? What is it going to do? Which also has led now back to them not only going back to the Eastern Conference Finals, but making it to the NBA Finals for the first time since 1999. And man, New York City is hype about what is happening there. Like the reality of what, like, New Yorkers have always been the best television, in my opinion. But man, what is coming out of them in this time as they're cheering on their team has been phenomenal. And I can't think of a better encapsulation of what it feels like to live in America right now than the news stories surrounding game 3 of the NBA Finals, the first home game for the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals in 27 years. Like, this is a big deal. Madison Square Garden is the mecca of basketball. It is like the prestige of that building. Madison Square Garden is basketball. And Madison Square Garden on Monday night is going to host the NBA Finals for the first time in 27 years. So the first issue that we run into is the price of the tickets. Now, we already live in the weirdest of places. Every year around the Super Bowl, my fiance and I have a conversation about, like, man, it feels like no one could afford to go to the Super Bowl. Like, no one. It seems impossible to say, oh, yeah, I can get a nosebleed ticket to the Super Bowl. And yet, the tickets for the NBA Finals this year, the cheapest ticket at one point last week, like late last week, beginning of this week, was $8,000. The numbers have risen into the 11, 12s for the cheapest tickets available, $11,000 or $12,000 for one ticket, which absolutely pushes out everyday New Yorkers. Your average run-of-the-mill Knicks fan who loves the New York Knicks, who's been cheering for the New York Knicks that person's entire life. Here it is. They actually can't even afford to go to the game in the first place. So the price is astronomical. It's out of control. It's pricing out the normal person in exchange for the corporations who are buying up seats, because that's one of it, is corporations buy up groups of seats and then divvy them out either to executives, or they have, different incentives that happen at their company. And so you have, as per usual in this country, you have corporations who are buying up the spaces that normal people are working really hard to get. And then you have, if you're not a part of that corporate strata, you have to be making a ton of money or give up every dollar you have to get to the game. So when we recognize that off rip, we've created this extreme space where the average Knicks fan couldn't go to the game if they wanted to. Because if it's $12,000 a pop, that's $24,000 for two seats. And the person who's been a Knicks fan since the 70s probably does not have that money, especially in this economy. So what's the solution for that? There are political solutions, and New York has the people in place in the mayoral office and the city council has the people in place who are actually working to lower costs for everyday New Yorkers, right? Like Zohran Mamdani being their mayor is the fascinating part about this. It's not like he controls the prices of the New York Knicks. Let's be clear. And also, one of the ways that New Yorkers have worked and pushed against this is they've just been outside. New York fans, Knicks fans, have been outside watching the game. I mean, they have set up shop across the city, and it has been something to see. Just like outside, tens of thousands of people just hanging out. It's unbelievably incredible. Sorry, bumping through all these pictures. It's been incredible to watch. And them just setting up shop. You've got places who are literally trying to hold as many people as legally possible to be able to watch the game. Like there is a bar I saw where they could only hold so many people, and so they literally projected the game outside. So people couldn't get inside to watch the game in the bar. So the bar projected. Check out this clip.
All right, Victoria line. He's a geezer. All right. He's a geezer in Britain. Oh, he's a geezer, is he?
So you're not even inside the club. You can't even get in. Let go, right? And the bar is recognizing this, but people want to watch the game together. There's a collective and communal experience that's happening. So bars and watch parties are projecting onto the screens. And it's been incredible. People have been outside, and it's summer. Like, there's nothing like summer in the city. Someone in a rush meeting, someone looking pretty. That's where we are. In the greatest city in the world. the ingenuity to figure out how do we make sure that we're still able to do this with every bar packed. People are outside projecting onto buildings, onto houses, just to be able to be outside. And man, we were getting ready to be in a spot where that's going to happen for the NBA Finals. And then Donald Trump decided that he wanted to step in and watch a game because New York's hot. Now, mind you, Trump has repeatedly talked mess about New York City. Repeatedly. His home base is no longer New York City. He made that abundantly clear. I'm no longer from New York. I live in Florida now. Like that's, I feel like Jadakiss. Like I'm from New York. I'm not from Miami, not in Colorado. Come down to my block. You know where I'm at. No, Trump said, I'm no longer from New York. I'm from Florida. But what does Trump do? He likes to co-opt. He likes to hop into what's hot. And so he was invited by Jim Dolan, who, mind you, had run that franchise into the ground. They couldn't get back to the finals because Dolan, in all of his incompetence and all of his hubris and all of his arrogance, put the team in a position where they couldn't get back there. And what does Dolan do? He wants to utilize the fact that they're hot as fish grease right now to pull in the guy that he likes in Trump and come around. And so Trump got asked, like, are you going to go? And he's like, I think I'm going to go. I was going to go to another game, but I think I'm going to go to this next one. They've been bad for very long, but now they're very good. And with that one decision, for Trump to come to New York City to go to the games, the first step was it changed the experience of those going to the games. The New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden. I feel like I'm Jackie Chan. I've always went to Square Martin. The New York Knicks and the Madison Square Garden put out a statement saying that Knicks fans should arrive earlier to games because there was going to be increased security at these games because of the fact that the president was going to be there. And to be clear, presidents have gone to games before. I mean, Barack Obama used to go to Washington Wizards games. It didn't fundamentally change the thing, but there is a particular thing with Donald Trump, and that is that he has been targeted several times. And I'm using air quotes only because I know what I've seen with my eyeballs. My eyeballs are the source. And we're not even going to cover the story that around the FBI documents saying that the sheriff in Butler, Pennsylvania, had correspondence with the alleged shooter that shot at Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. That's FBI records. But I have not done enough research on that to talk about that on this show right now. But it's out there. And Joe Budden on his podcast was talking about how he reached out to the New York Knicks to ensure that his seats were not going to be behind Trump, obviously for the optics. Because let's be clear, nobody wants to be next to Trump for several reasons. One of which, like, that's a bad look. Somebody go, and all of a sudden it's like somebody gets online and like, listen, y'all don't know, but your favorite podcaster is rocking with Trump. I mean, you know how many times the picture of Beyonce and Jay-Z sitting kitty corner to Jared and Ivanka has been shared, and it's an angle issue. They weren't like sitting next to each other, but the angle, everybody's like, see, they're a part of the problem. Joe Budden's like, y'all not finna Jay-Z and Beyonce me. In addition to that, Joe Budden, because he's got jokes, was like, listen, when folks have tried to go for him, people have tried to gun for him, literally, they miss. And you're not going to miss him and hit me. So the experience of going to the game, if you were one of the folks who was a part of that corporate strata, like I said, one of the folks who's paid all that money, or you're a person who might be a season ticket holder, like you finessed this, you figured it out. If you're one of those folks, then your entire game going experience for the first NBA Finals game in Madison Square Garden in over a quarter of a century is now fundamentally changed. You have to go now through a more TSA-like security experience because Trump is going to be there. And then the straw that broke the camel's back for me, because it's one thing if rich folks are inconvenienced because you paid $12,000 to go to this NBA Finals game, and now you got to get there a little bit earlier. And oh no, you got to tell your driver to get you there a little bit earlier. I'm sorry. I have sympathy, but my sympathy is like not as deep as it is for the next part that happened as a result of the fact that Donald Trump is a fund stealer. Like everything he touches turns to boo-boo. He's like Midas touch, but if Midas touch was boo-boo touch, the fact that Donald Trump is going to be at this game now has created the environment where the NYPD has shut down the watch parties outside of Madison Square Garden. So now the people who couldn't get to the game because of the astronomical prices, and we're not going to go through that TSA-like rundown, now also can't even stand outside. Like they can't even stand outside and watch the game, which has been part of the deal. A part of the deal is up to this point, the communal experience of being outside with other New Yorkers and acting a fool as you watch the projection of the game. That's been a part of it. That's been a part of the story. As much as Karl-Anthony Towns out there playing like an all-star, as much as Jalen Brunson playing great late in games, as much as their defense showing up in incredible ways, it's been New Yorkers being able to be outside and watch the game. And because this man decided that he wants to go, that changes the experience for the people outside. And once again, as I said at the top of the show, I don't think anything better encapsulates what it feels like to exist in Trump's America than the idea that you already can't afford the thing. So you find a way to finesse around the thing and find some joy somewhere, only for Trump to then do something else, show up somewhere else, do something like you already are experiencing the reality of not only is it too expensive, but corporations are shutting you out. Okay, well, I can't even go to that. I'll try to figure out another way. And then Trump's like, how about I come over here and put my boo-boo Midas touch on you on this side, and now you can't even enjoy the thing that was bringing you joy. There is nothing that better encapsulates for me what it looks like to exist in this country right now than if you were a Knicks fan who suddenly can't even hang out outside of your team's arena and watch the first NBA Finals game there in a quarter century. While that man is also at the same time having a UFC fight over on the White House lawn. Stay there. New Yorkers don't want you. People drive by your buildings and stick up a middle finger. You lost your city, you lost your borough, you lost your state in every election you've been in. People don't like you. We're building hotels in Jersey. Everything's legal in New Jersey. People don't like you. So the reality is this. Donald Trump, through his policies, tariff policies, war in Iran, the ways that he has committed fraud to enrich himself, Donald Trump has partnered with corporations to make this world unaffordable for you, and then turned around and told you that affordability is a hoax. Then he decides to consistently show up in the news and do things and find ways to ruin even the things that are bringing us joy. And sometimes I just feel like there's nothing we can do about it. But I'll tell you this. Donald Trump's going to show up on Monday at Madison Square Garden. He's not going to stay the whole game. He's probably going to go sit in the box. He's going to get booed. He's going to have his ego bruised. He's going to leave early. And all of that, the lack of a watch party outside the game, the security to get into the game, the focus of the broadcast of the game are going to be ruined because he wanted a photo op. And that's just who he is. That's just what this has been. But I hope he gets booed. I hope New Yorkers do what New Yorkers do. I hope this doesn't go the way that he hopes. And ultimately, I hope that the New York Knicks can stay focused, because I'm rooting for them. I don't have a dog in this fight, but man, like, I want to keep seeing every week, or every other couple days, I should say, this video I saw recently. that I think is, if the experience right now is the best encapsulation, to me, this is the best antidote.
Mayor Muslim, my bagel's Jewish, my Christian Dior, Knicks.
That man said, my mayor is Muslim, my bagel's Jewish, my Christian Dior, Knicks in 4. And every single one of those things makes the folks who support him mad. And I hope that he not only gets the unwelcome treatment of being there, but the Knicks find a way to show that the most diverse, the most progressive city in the country can step up and fight back. I am very, very excited about this opportunity I have with you all. And one of the things I really want to strive to do every week is to bring to you voices that are speaking to the things that are happening in this world. I'm going to have an interview with Senator Erin Maye Quade. She is a state senator for the state of Minnesota, and we talk about very specifically this same concept: AI detention center. No, I'm sorry, not AI detention centers, but AI data centers that are being built in our backyards, and the way that local government is fighting back against it. Hi, Erin. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I've had the opportunity since following you. I think you popped up on TikTok first for me, and I was like, oh, somebody local. This is really cool. And like watching you really, in my opinion, master what it looks like to create content around being a state senator. It has just been a really, really fun journey to see. And we just wrapped the legislative session.
We
So,
did.
how is that feeling? Like, how did this legislative session feel for you?
Personally, it was a very productive legislative session for me. I think I passed the most standalone bills off of the Senate floor, and I think I passed the most standalone bills into law this session. So that feels really good. I will say, it's a difficult, like the House is tied. We have a 1 seat majority in the Senate. We're kind of in this like authoritarian takeover that has been particularly acute in Minnesota, just with the federal government targeting. And like we're the first year after the assassination of Melissa Hortman and Mark Hortman and Gilbert, shooting of John and Yvette, but like a bunch of us were, including myself, were on the hit
Right.
list, right? And
Yeah.
so as we got to the end of session, it started to feel like what it felt like last session, with my body and brain being like, okay, but nobody's getting assassinated at the end of this. So
Hmm.
like that was like a very
Yeah.
heavy like end of, it was a hard, it's been hard. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's interesting you mentioned that around the PTSD, because I know last year all of that happened right after the big fundraising dinner.
Yes.
And so like there's a like I'm going to be at that. There's a part of me that's like, "Oh, and this was the preamble." Like there's I think there's a particular frustration because we have that. We have the assassination and attempted assassinations. We have Annunciation. We have
Yeah.
Operation Metro Surge. It just feels like there's always something.
Yeah.
And now we're in election season, it's in convention season, and like I you get there and you kind of head on a swivel and all of these different things happening, because I think in part we're trying to build something really, really great.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, you have, you know, just trying to do the democratic process. And I would say that was my first convention. And whoa, I did not know that people cared about the rules that
Oh,
much.
they care about the rules. Yes.
Yeah. And then you have, a couple hundred miles away in Duluth, the GOP convention, and they
Mhm.
make the decision to hold a moment of silence for Derek Chauvin. And no one seems to want to take credit for that moment.
Yeah, and he's alive. I don't know
Yeah.
why. It's like he's
Yeah.
not dead, right? So, but like it is weird because, at our convention, we're honoring Melissa and Mark and Renee Good and Alex Preddy and Liam Ramos. We're talking about Harper and Fletcher. And then like just a few hours north, the Republicans are like, let's hold a moment of silence for a straight up murderer who is alive. And I had this moment of like, if my predecessor was murdered in a political assassination by someone from my own party, I'd probably have a moment of silence for her. Maybe not like a slideshow or a commemoration, but
Hmm.
how hard would it have been to say, like, let's have a moment of silence for Melissa Hortman and Mark Hortman for 10 seconds? It would have taken nothing. And it's just like the difference is so stark. Um, yeah, it's just but
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed the convention because I love it. I love like a little bit of like organized chaos, which is what
Hmm.
conventions are. And I love like the democratic process should feel like, like you're moving and you're like you have generative tension, right? Like I
Yes.
really love it. Yeah.
Yes. The tension in the room, we won't dive too deep into this, around the gubernatorial
Mhm.
endorsement was something that was
It
fever
was.
pitch. I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. But we landed from the convention with these endorsements, and we're getting into the space where we're running. And I think,
Yes.
like, I'm asking people to recognize the differences between the conventions, the differences between, getting out and showing your face versus using a deep fake for someone, which
Yeah.
is a particularly fascinating to me because you led the charge on this very issue
Yeah.
previously. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so 3 years ago, I passed a law that prohibited the use of deepfakes in to influence an election. And the law is really specific, right? So the deepfake has to be so realistic that a reasonable person would think it's real,
Mhm.
and it has to be used to like injure a candidate. And you have to know that it's a deepfake when you disseminate. So there's like criteria to it, right?
For
It's
sure.
not to say if someone made like a cartoon of me, or even they used AI to generate a video, but it's very clear that like maybe I have a ventriloquist mouth, or you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like if you
Yeah.
use something like that, it was really meant to get at we don't want people seeing straight up lies that are made to look very, very real.
Mhm.
And there's also, and like as a candidate myself, I have a right to not be shown realistically doing or saying something that I didn't do or say,
For
right?
sure.
You can say I did something, you can say I said something, but if you take my likeness and make it appear as if I did or said something that I didn't do, I just don't think that should be legal. So that is what the law is, and it was bipartisan. It passed unanimously through the Senate. I think there was one vote against it in the House. But I wanted to get ahead of the problem. We hadn't had deep fakes in elections at that point
Right.
in Minnesota. And so if we could make a law about it before we did have a deep fake, we wouldn't be responding to a candidate or to a party. We would be proactively saying, we don't want this in our elections. And that's what we did. And I'm really glad we did that.
For sure. And for context, I probably should have gave it. In the race for Senate, there's a primary on the Democratic
Mhm,
side for Senate, and there was a ad that was put out by a PAC that supports Angie Craig that
mhm,
used an AI generated version of Peggy Flanagan. That's
mhm.
the context for that. And I would say in general, the conversations around AI are just swirling. I have this thought process I'm going to talk about more online. I feel like AI and like poly markets are going to be the death of us.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but in particular, there's the element of like the environmental issues with
Sure.
AI as well as the structural issues with AI,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
the use of deep fakes or creating misinformation or whatever it might be. And there's been a fight here in the state of Minnesota around data centers. That's the
Yes.
deal, is like trying to get these companies trying to put these data centers in places that can be detrimental from an environmental standpoint to the
Mhm.
people who live there, and also oftentimes just not a lot of transparency around that. I know that's been a
Yeah.
fight that you've also been waging.
Oh, yes. Where would you like me to start? Just
Wherever,
tell
like,
me.
yes, wherever. I mean, I
Oh.
think that there's an because I know that there was a conversation about a data center that was potentially going to be put up, and there was some anonymity around that, if I'm not mistaken.
Many of them. So I represent most of the city of Rosemount, and the first hyperscale data center in the state of Minnesota is in Rosemount. And it's not technically in my district, but all the people who live near it are in my district. It's just across the street.
For sure.
And we found out about this data center in 2023 after it had been completely agreed to by the city of Rosemount. It had been agreed to under a code name, Project Bigfoot. The Meta liaison with the city had a code name. It was Ken Confidential, and that was his email. It all happened under NDAs. And so, Meta, I loathe them personally as a company. And I think Mark Zuckerberg has committed, crimes against humanity.
Absolutely.
Um, for which he should be held accountable. But so you have parents. I live in a suburb. I represent the suburbs. Parents whose kids are always on Instagram, they're always on Snapchat, right? Like they see the phone addiction. We have a demonstrable decline in children's, educational outcomes. And now
Absolutely.
we have the physical manifestation of this horrible company that's like led to election interference and committed and helped like
Hmm.
promote genocide in other countries and like done all this
Yeah.
horrible stuff. We're going to build a huge data center in your backyard, and you didn't even get a chance to say anything about it to your elected
Right.
officials. People aren't happy, right? And so we've seen that happen now, but with Google and with Amazon, across the state, Pine Island, Monticello, North Mankato, Hermantown, Farmington. And I think what you described kind of at the outset of this, we have all these conversations about AI. We're having all these conversations about like our data and privacy and security.
Hmm.
And then I think data centers, like in addition to the environmental concerns, it becomes the like, oh, the building, like your neighbor, your physical, literal neighbor that is doing all these terrible things. Now you can see them and you can,
Yeah.
so I think data centers have come to represent very much that, even though they individually are quite terrible, both to the people they are built near and the environment. And there's noise pollution and light pollution, like things
Hmm.
that, we don't solve for in our water permitting laws or in our ratepayer protections. There's heat island effects. So there's emerging research that the heat island put off by hyperscale data centers can be anywhere from like 3 to 16 degrees. Um, so,
Interesting.
like, we
Yeah.
did pass a law in 2025 that protects ratepayers from having their electricity or their energy rates increase because of data centers, which is good. But that only protects us from the energy they're using. What about the energy we have to use to cool
Hmm.
our homes
For
who
sure.
live near a data center because of that heat island? So, I am naming but like a small iota of the problem. But so data centers are just, I really do think it's become, whether it's fair or not, very much of the like, are you for the people or are you for these
Right.
multi-billion-dollar international corporations who are just like sucking up all of our land for their data centers that no one asked for technology that I'm still not clear. So like, what is it that Meta wants to do that they can't do now? Because right, we don't have the Meta data center in
Hmm.
Rosemount. We don't
Hmm.
have the Google data center
Yeah.
in Pine Island. So what is it that they want to do? That's I don't like. I think that's a question that we all should be asking, rightfully so.
Yeah. And I think to your point, there's this larger sense of like the dystopian nature of it. It's like Big
Yeah.
Brother. I mean, the phones listen. We have
Oh yes.
conversations all the time, and then I'll open Instagram, and it's like, "Would you like to go to Disneyland?" It's like
Just
we didn't even say the words. You inceptioned it out my brain at this point.
do you want to hear one that we
Yes.
had? So we have a home project in our backyard that is so it's going to be expensive. It's going to take us 5 to 10 years to save up for it. Like we know it's going to take a long time. And so every time we're out in the backyard, we're like, oh, like our super expensive project that we don't have the money for. We know it. And my wife made a joke the other day. She was like, I'm going to have to sell foot pictures or something on the internet for us to afford this. She opened TikTok and the first video was like, look how much money I made selling foot pics on the internet. Let me tell you how. And I was like that is
It's
so
not
far
okay. It's
beyond.
not okay. It's not okay.
Like she's never seen a video like that in her life. It is not even remotely related to an interest she's ever had. And right after, and I was like, yeah, okay, they're listening.
They and and they're listening for the purpose. Something I say all the time is like the objective is to keep us on the app for as long as humanly possible in order
Yes.
to convince advertisers to spend more money on ads
Yep.
so that they can reach out to us. Like we at some point are data centers. We are
We are
not
the
human
product.
beings. Like
Right.
we are always the output of these data pieces so that someone else
Hmm.
can buy that data to sell something back to us. And you're right. I think the physical manifestation of Big Brother sitting there creates
Yeah.
a whole other issue. Now, are you finding any bipartisan support in trying to push back against these data centers, or is it becoming drawn down partisan lines?
It is not down partisan lines, especially across the country. So I am part of a bipartisan group of state legislators. We have like a group chat and we have a conference, and we're really dedicated to regulating big tech and AI. And there are people like we don't talk about anything else in this group chat because we couldn't, right? Like we are from the like darkest red. all the way to the darkest
Mm,
darkest blue and anything in between. So even if you took all the Democrats and put us in our separate, we wouldn't really have a lot to talk
right.
about either because we just don't agree on everything. But in this, we're lockstep. And so we've been talking about data centers, and actually today, June 4th, New York is poised to pass a 1-year moratorium on data centers. So we were just talking about that
That's
in that
awesome.
chat. So no, it is bipartisan support, but it's also bipartisan opposition. What I'm finding is that, the support, and one thing I want to say is that the jobs of the people who build the data centers, like, I understand that those are good paying jobs. Absolutely they are. And these are a lot of, especially in Minnesota, a lot of our union brothers and
Hmm.
sisters, right? And I'm not opposed to them having good paying jobs, but I liken it to the I'm against the war in Iran, but I'm not against the troops.
For
Like, it's kind
sure.
of that thing for me. Um, and so, that's kind of one of the things, like, even within the DFL, there's not universal ire for data centers. And
For
within
sure.
the Republicans, there isn't either. But I do have bipartisan, people who agree with me, and then bipartisan people who disagree with me.
For sure. And I think we are kind of collectively living in the reality of some of the polarizations of that, partisan, the partisan splits that exist.
Yeah.
And we saw that on full display this year with the House and the state being tied
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
Senate having a one Democrat majority. And so, my question for you is, what is one thing that you believe should have gotten done, but partisan politics got in the way?
Um, I
I'm sure
mean,
there's
it's
tons.
there is, right? Like, there's so much. One thing that comes to mind immediately, and it's recency bias probably, but Lisa Damas should have given the gun violence prevention bill a vote, right? I'm not saying that it would have passed. I actually think the reason that she didn't give it a vote is because it would have passed,
Hmm.
because it wasn't just an assault weapons ban and high capacity magazine. It was also like $20 million for school safety, and like tens of millions of dollars for mental health. And the thing, it was a package, right? Like, all the
Right.
things we talk about when we talk about gun violence prevention, it was all in there. And so it should have had a vote, right? I don't
Yeah.
know if it would have passed, but it should have had a vote. That's one thing that comes to mind. I had a it's hard for me not to talk about my own bills, but I had
Yeah. That's why you're here.
thanks, yeah. I had a bill that would have allowed or would have required insurance companies to cover infertility treatment. And I have the votes. I have the votes in the Senate. I have the votes in the House. But Lisa Damath wouldn't give it she wouldn't let it through. And so that is so, like, it pains me because there's so many people who want to start or grow their family, and they can't because they can't afford to pay out of pocket for their infertility treatments. And that was partisan politics because we actually had the votes for it. We had 35 votes in the Senate, and we had 69 votes in the House. Like, that's enough to pass a bill.
Right.
So that's a huge bummer.
So then it leads to my next question. What is one thing that you believe that you will be able to get pushed through in this next session with potentially a majority?
Some of the stuff that I know that I'll be able to get through with a majority. Some of it's stuff I think I could still get through without a majority, but it would be way harder and might not
Hmm.
look as good. But stuff that we would be able to get through with a majority, I mean, we're talking, um, I think the gun violence prevention package is coming back next year for sure. Infertility treatment for sure. There was $100 million in the forward fund for it was Senator Bobby Joe Champion to help small businesses that are struggling after Metro Surge.
Okay.
We absolutely could get that through. We had a response to the federal government and ICE package. So a few different senators had different bills, but mine was keeping ICE out of childcare centers,
Okay.
keeping them off school property, not deploying tear gas, a duty to render aid,
Hmm.
giving Minnesotans the right to, if their rights have been violated by ICE, to sue the federal government for their state constitutional rights being violated. Um, and there was another one that, this is wild. So in the 80s, there was a US Supreme Court decision that said every child has the right to a free and appropriate education, regardless of their immigration status. And so Senator Elise Mann, which I'm so sad she's
Yeah,
retiring,
she's retiring.
um,
Yeah.
she had a bill that said you can't deny a child their right to public education based on their actual or perceived immigration status, or their parents' actual or perceived immigration
Hmm.
status, because there is a movement afoot to overturn that Supreme Court decision.
Of course.
Um, Yes. And Republicans voted against her bill. Like it was a standalone bill and they voted against it moving through committee. That we very, very much need to get passed through. So, like, that whole package would get through. Um, Grant Housechild has had $100 million in property tax reductions. I think it could have been more if we didn't have to negotiate with Republicans.
Yeah,
I have some bills about private equity, getting out of assisted living and getting out of buying homes. That was Liz Bolden's bill. Those could get through. I mean, there's so
for
much
sure.
stuff that like does it. It's not like sexy, but it would like materially change Minnesotans' lives.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the thing is like so often people don't believe that politics has a material impact. They
Yeah.
think it's kind of a matter of conveniences or inconveniences. And I will say there is just the deluge of everything. So you have the
Hmm.
national, right? We were talking
Yep.
earlier today about what may or may not come from the Supreme Court. And obviously
Mm.
we are always, having our eye on the Supreme Court because every time the Supreme Court speaks, both you and I are on the chopping block
Yes,
for
we
some,
are. Yep.
for some sort of right. It's absurd. We shouldn't be at that spot. So you have the national news and the,
Hmm.
flooding the zone of the Trump administration.
Yeah.
And then you have the local. And like we started
Mm.
with, I mean, Minnesotans, just in the last 6 years, we had George Floyd being murdered,
Yep.
right? And then Dante Wright
Yep.
shortly after that. We had to deal with the trial of Derek Chauvin in the aftermath of that. And then we've had Operation Metro Surge. We had the
Mhm.
Annunciation. Like there's just all of these different
Yeah.
experiences that we've had. So my question to wrap this up is given both um the dredge that is local and national politics. And considering we're only a couple months out from the midterms, what is
Mhm.
one way that you would encourage people to stay in the fight?
Mm. So I give people like a few different parts of the same set of advice, which is the following. One, you have to treat yourself like a plant. You need sunshine, you need water, and you need food. And so like you have to do that first and foremost, or you
Mhm,
won't stay alive. So you have to do that. The second part is like pick your thing or two things, but you don't get much more than that. And then focus there
mhm,
because this really is like a group sport and we all have our positions and we have to trust that we are doing our part in our lane. And
mhm,
then the folks who have, so let's say I choose gun violence prevention. Okay. I'm doing my stuff in gun violence. Of course I care about climate change. Of
mhm.
course I care about, civil liberties, but like I'm going to focus on gun violence prevention and know that my folks in climate will tap me in when they need me. And when they don't need me, they're doing their stuff. Right.
Right.
And same with folks over doing civil liberties. Right. So you have to choose your thing, join your group, do it alongside people. I promise you, you're not the first person to ever have thought of the issue. There are people who have done something and they're organizing on it. Join up and then figure out what you have to offer to it. Maybe it's just money. That's okay. Maybe it's time. That's okay. Maybe it's like designing stuff or organizing people or being
Mhm.
in like the admin to send out the meetings. Like we need people to schedule
Yeah,
meetings.
yeah,
Maybe it's doing confirmation phone calls to make sure people will show up or booking the event space or ordering the food or whatever it is. Your talent is needed and show up and be with people. Like that really is we have to get off like you can consume content about it but if you're not talking to other people about it especially people who want to do something with you then you're going to feel defeated all the time and so it really is to like get engaged on that accessible level and do your work and then also remember it's a choir so you can take breaths and then come back in
yeah,
when you're ready
yeah,
so you don't have to I feel sometimes the pressure to be it's not outrage. I feel the pressure to be as despondent as the people of the family who is experiencing the worst thing, right?
yeah.
All the time. And joy is an act of resistance. And like I have to remind myself of that all the time, like not in a cutesy way of like, no, no, you have to be happy. Like go
Yeah,
do things
yeah,
that bring
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
joy. So
yeah. Well, Senator Erin May Quade, I'm so grateful that you took the time to spend some time with us. Please tell the people where they can find you.
Erin May Quade on all platforms. And you can call me EMQ. It's totally fine.
Okay.
Everybody does.
And website, I know you're running for re-election right now.
I am. Yep. ErinMayQuaid.com. And you can donate. You can sign up to volunteer. You can write letters to the editor. You can, make content. I did. Someone sent me. There's someone on Reddit that like posts like a post about me, like occasionally I'm like, I have no idea who that is, but thank you. That's great. That
That's
works.
awesome.
You can come write postcards and or make phone calls. So do something. Just do something.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
So before we go, I just have one more thing I want to talk about.
Give me one more.
Okay, one more thing.
Why do you? But we do have one more thing.
One more.
I love it. This has been a fun episode. This has been a fun time with you all. I get animated. Like I said, I love sports, and I also love local government and politics, and I hope that you all have learned a lot today. The news that came down right before I logged on is that Spencer Pratt is not going to make it to the runoff in California and Los Angeles. And that makes me happy, in particular because Spencer Pratt had no business being in this race in the first place. There is absolutely, positively no reason why a former reality TV star with absolutely zero experience in government and no real experience in life whatsoever should have been handed the keys to, I know we're talking about New York a lot on this episode, but should have been handed the keys to the second biggest city in the country, to one of the most diverse cities and one of the most diverse economies, one of the biggest economies in the world. And the fact that he was in that spot speaks to, and I will continue to talk about this, is the fact that there was such a concerted effort and attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion because there was a viewpoint by certain white people and those who align with them that diversity, equity, and inclusion were a psyop in order to give Black and brown people, women, and LGBTQ plus folks access to opportunities that they did not deserve. On the artist formerly known as Twitter, people were referring to DEI as didn't earn it. But what we've seen in the Trump era is how white men in particular are being given jobs and access, or in this case, just the ability to run with seriousness to something they didn't earn over the incumbent Karen Bass or the person who's coming in second, Natia Raman, who well-educated, career in the work that they've done, nonprofits, organizing, right, or career as a state delegate, as a United States representative, like as a city council member. Like these folks have worked to this point. And the fact that Spencer Pratt was even in it speaks to just the fact that DEI was actually always feared that everyone else would get the same treatment as white men. And ultimately, that's not what was happening. DEI didn't give Black people opportunities they didn't deserve. DEI gave Black people opportunity to be in a room that they may not have been able to be in to prove that they deserved it, to prove that they had earned it through their time, energy, and credentials. And so next time someone says that we should have taken Spencer Pratt seriously, just remind them that at the end of the day, he didn't earn it. He's really DEI. Thank you all so much for coming to this episode of Let's Be Clear with Just Wayne. I'm Just Wayne. I will be back with you all on Wednesday talking about whatever's happening in the intersection of pop culture and politics. And remember, everything is political. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
There is nothing that I wouldn't do.
For your attention, please. Can I have your attention, please? Everybody just look at me. Everybody just look at me. I day trade attention. Shout out to Gary V. Respond to every mention. You can find me on your NYPD before.